And just so it's finally time for us to update our monthly tier list, this time for the month of May. And within the month of April, we did receive 6 new resurrectable characters, 3 of them being Faust and Blood Roar, which did come at quite the surprise. And as for the new character releases, we did get 5 new characters. The mid-month consisting of a fight that had yet to be adapted in Brave Souls, which obviously I was very excited about. And then the month itself wrapped up with a very cool and surprising seasonal banner, in this case the Future Society characters. And with that, of course, we are going to be ranking them on our tier list today. But as always, when it comes to the value of our characters here, at least the way I rank my characters is 1, their damage output. This could of course include how hard they hit and also how good their range is, whether it's a strong attack or normal attack. Their usability is also important because you could be a really hard hitting character, but where am I going to use you? Where do I want to use you? And then of course we also do have survivability. Does the character have any immunities? Can they heal themselves? Can they easily stay at full stamina? Those are very important in what makes a character good in my opinion, and that's what we are going to be ranking and valuing on these 5 new characters and also 6 resurrectable characters. So first up, we're going to obviously start off with the hard tier list, and in this case we did receive 1 new character, that being the Future Society version of Noitora. Now, Noitora is definitely a step in the right direction for what farmers actually can be. Farmers more often than not are just directly wanting to be used in the content they want to be used in, like Inheritance Trials, Inheritance Zone, or Epic Raids. In this case, Noitora being a super Linksa farmer, you of course do want to use him in Inheritance Trials. And with that, you want to get through the Iron Skin ability. And the way he's going to do that is by having an increased chance to inflict lacerate on all of his attacks. That in combination with Frenzy +2 means when he does actually use a strong attack, it's a very good chance you are going to apply Lacerate, therefore getting through the Iron Skin ability. Alongside that, once he does apply a stat summon, he then does get an 80% stat boost to his Spiritual Pressure stat, making his damage output very, very high, especially when you consider the fact that he then does do 60% more damage to lacerated enemies. The more streamlined way of getting through the Iron Skin ability as of late has been to just outright pierce it, and that's what we see with characters like Halibel, Tensa Zangetsu, and also Senjumaru, in what makes them really good in Inheritance Trials when it comes to farming Super Links or potions, because they don't have to rely on RNG abilities to get through the Iron Skin. Naruto unfortunately does have to rely on the RNG aspect of inflicting a stat summon, but I think as of right now, he's probably the best in the archetype. For starters, he's the only farmer in the game right now to have Frenzy 2 and an SP boost with the increased chance. So that's going to be really good. When I tested him out in Epic Raids, and of course also Inheritance Trials, more specifically Inheritance Trials, he was clearing relatively fast. Can he clear faster than Rangiku? I would say no, but they're definitely very similar in clear times. But a benefit with Noitora is that you are getting +10 Super Links or potions. So he's easily one of the best and go-to Super Links or farmers for the heart attribute. Nice to have more options, and he's always going to be viable in Inheritance Trials unless the enemies themselves have lacerate immunity, which truth be told occasionally will happen, so that is something to keep in mind. However, since he does have a high damage output with the increased chance against any mind enemy, and also immune to every status element, I think he's going to be more usable than not usable, if that kind of makes sense. Where would I rank him on the tier list? Well, truth be told, I want to say top of S tier, but then I also want to start maybe de-ranking certain characters. Maybe it's too soon, but I know maybe some people have maybe wanted these characters to get moved down. In this case, I'm starting to think about moving down Ichigo, 6th Anniversary Aizen, and also Swimsuit Rangiku. They're all great characters. Rangiku, as of right now, I think is still the most optimal farmer. In terms of at least clear time, when it comes to potions, you're probably better off using Noitora. But then remember, you can use Noitora as a link on someone like Rangiku, for example. Aizen's damage output is definitely falling off. Maybe it has been falling off, but he's still like very, very optimal on a lot of different teams. Especially when it comes to Guild Quest. I think that's what's definitely carrying him still to this day, even though he did almost release 3 years ago, right? The tracking vortex, the survivability, the 2 killers. I know there are still many people, myself included, that still use him in Guild Quest as the main lead. So I kind of want to move him down, but I kind of don't want to do it right now. Maybe I'll see what you guys have to say. I think Noitora is definitely top of S tier. If anything, if you think he is better than Aizen, Rangiku, and maybe even Ichigo, I'll move them down. I don't think he's an SS tier character. I still want to limit him to S tier, but he's definitely got a lot going for him. What I think that's great about him, which very well might move him up, right, is like, and he is a farmer, so you're always going to use them in Inheritance Styles, Inheritance Zone, Epic Raids, for example. But very rarely do you take a farming character into Guild Quest, and we might just see Noitora actually be good in Guild Quest content. I mean, Frenzy +2, 80% SP boost, more damage to lashing dead enemies. He has a good enough kit. He very well might be good in Guild Quest. And what we are seeing too with the upcoming Guild Quest schedule is that they are separating the Quincy and also Sternritter Guild Quests. And what you can see in SS tier is that Ichigo is the best character when it comes to Sternritter killers, but now you're not going to be using them in the same week. So while Ichigo would have basically invalidated Noitora's existence for Guild Quest content. With Ichigo now being moved into the Stammer Guild Quest, that means there are now less options and good options for the Melee Quincy Guild Quest. Yes, you still have access to characters like Ichibei, and Ichibei is going to be a much better character for Guild Quest content, but Noitora is potentially an option. And that's what I think is most impressive about this character, is that he's not just a farmer, he can also be good in Guild Quest, and truth be told, maybe he'll be good in a future Limit Breaker quest. His damage output's good enough, he's immune to every stat element, so I think Noritora's got a lot going for him despite just being a super Linksa farmer. And I think that's commendable. Again, I'll wait for you guys' feedback. Maybe I might move down Ichigo, Rangiku, and also Aizen. If anything, they will just move down and probably be right under Noitora. But that doesn't mean like these characters are any worse than what they currently are. They're still great characters, and still characters I use more often every single month. Again, briefly going on Ichigo, right, I feel like he's actually gotten better with the new Guild Quest schedule, because when it comes to these Stammer Guild Quests, while it's true they haven't made it so you have to bring a melee or a ranged character specifically, it's either or. There aren't that many good Stammer killers out there, so having Ichigo is maybe now even more important for Guild Quests, because he's the only good lead for these Stammer Guild Quests. So this change, in my opinion, has definitely made Ichigo better. Likewise, to a certain extent, we can also talk about Kiryu, right? Who always disappoints me every time I have to use her or want to use her. And ultimately, the main reason for that has been her SA2 being a melee attack, right? But now the Human Guild Quest doesn't have any range resistance. It doesn't have melee resistance. You bring either a melee character or a ranged character. So in a way, while I'm not going to really move her up on the tier list or anything, right? This new Guild Quest schedule that we are getting has actually made Kiryu a better character. Now I kind of dislike that I don't have her. Originally, I did 25 steps on a banner and didn't pull her. I was fine with it. I didn't need her. But now with this Guild Quest change, I kind of do want her. The fact that all three of her strong attacks can now do damage, and she can now also ride your team with the boost, makes her significantly better in my opinion, because she now has no longer wasted damage. So yeah, overall, Noritora in S tier. Depending on you lads' reaction, I might move down Ichigo, Aizen, and also Rangiku to the top of S tier. Kiryu, in my opinion, has gotten better. Likewise with Ichigo, he's also gotten better thanks to this new Guild Quest schedule. With that though, I don't think I have anything else to change. So that then takes us into the power attribute. In this case, we have one new character and one new resurrectable character. The resurrectable character in question is Byakuya, and he basically just does more damage to frozen enemies. It's not a crazy resurrection, truth be told. He basically plays the exact same. So because of that, I mean, I guess he just is maybe a tad bit better than Shinji. Probably not. I would still keep him the exact same. Ultimately, the character still plays the exact same despite him being resurrected, unfortunately, right? More damage output is always nice, but not when it's only a 20% increase. Unfortunately, we might see a lot of resurrections like him. Byakuya, for those that aren't aware, because the game is 8 years old, he is like 4 years plus old now at this point. Byakuya was kind of the start of power creep. At one point in time, while these three characters are in B tier, Shinji, Liege, and also Byakuya, they were the best characters at one point in the power attribute, and they kickstarted the SP meta, where characters have ridiculous strong attack hits and crazy high damage outputs. Unfortunately, the resurrection doesn't bring them back up, but Liege and also Shinji definitely still have a possibility of becoming significantly better, given their more limited status of being Calm for Your World and also 1000 Year Blood War characters. That though then takes us into the character of the month, Future Society Aaroniero. A character that was bugged upon release, and unfortunately with that his damage output and maybe first impressions were quite negative to say the least, but he's definitely easily the best character of the entire month. And a character we were hyping up upon release because we knew going into the end of April is that we were going to get a character designed for Limit Breaker and potentially also be really good in a very hard guild quest. And that's exactly what this Aaroniero easily is. So where exactly would we rank him in SSD? So I think depending on who you ask, the rankings would be similar, that these characters are the top 4 in the power attribute, but where you would place them in the top 4 would be different. Some would say Ichigo is still the best power character. Some would say Rukia is the best power character. Some might even say Yamamoto is still the best power character. For me, I'm going to say Aaroniero is number 1 right now. And with that, I'm actually going to potentially move down Rukia once more to be behind Ichigo. Again, it's always just been very awkward to rank Rukia as a character, and I've been always conflicted with where I want to place her over the last couple months since her release. And ultimately, it just comes down to that SA2 again just being super disappointing, as it is a melee attack. She, a ranged character, means in Guild Quest, she only has 2 strong attacks. She, of course, does have Rampage. She has the built-in recharge in between stages, and that makes her really good in Limit Breaker content. But even in Limit Breaker, again, you sometimes have those months where they buff range damage, so her SA2 is then doing less damage. She's a very weird character, and I'm always conflicted on where I want to place her, above or below Ichigo. Ichigo basically still performs the exact same. He just has has the benefit of being more usable in the sense that he has 2 killers. And again, maybe that's the reason why you might rank him number 1, even above Aaroniero. But right now, I'm going to rank Aaroniero number 1 because as far as these 4 SS tier characters, including Aaroniero in the power attribute, he's the only character without a problem. Only character without a problem. Ichigo, some people might say his damage output isn't high enough since it's only frenzy plus 3. Rukia, her SA2 is a melee attack. Yamamoto, honestly was perfect upon release, but obviously nowadays, with him being almost 2 years old, right? Frenzy plus 1 and an 80% berserker. His damage output still holds up well enough, but you know, it is definitely lacking compared to some of the newer characters, especially when you're performing at 1 out of 5, especially level 1. With Aarionero's release, while he was unfortunately bugged for a couple days, now that they fixed it, he's almost perfect. His SA1 is a beam forward, his SA2 is the lunge forward, and then his SA3 is very similar to the Getsugu Jujutsu attack that True Shikai Ichigo has, which is able to do a ridiculous amount of damage. Especially when you consider the fact that Aaroniero as a character has Frenzy plus 2, an 80% SP boost, 2 enemies defeated bonuses, so after around 40 kills, he gets a 40% strong attack damage increase, 20% of that being a universal team buff, which is obviously really good for guild quests and of course also limit breaker. He has weakened defense on his Soem, so his Soem's going to be really good, again, really good in guild quests and limit breaker content, any content where you have to use your Soem, even epic raids for example. But since he can apply weakening, he also then does do 40% more damage to those weakened enemies, so overall 90% more damage once you do inflict a status ailment. In a way, the only bad thing about Aaroniero is his killer effect, which isn't really even a bad thing, it being a Quincy killer. It's what makes him the most potentially valuable power character in the game, because as we do know, the ranged Quincy guild quest doesn't have access to that many good leads. As of right now, it's only him and also Toshiro. A character like Rukia, for example, as great as she is, in Guild Quest content in particular, you don't really need her because she's not the best character for a Guild Quest week. In Ichigo's case, while it is true you can use him in 2 types of Guild Quests, technically you can use him in 4 types of Guild Quests. He's not the most optimal character for his Guild Quest phase, whereas Aaroniero is. His damage output high, he has an increased chance to inflict weakening against every Quincy enemy, which is one of the more special things about him, right? In Guild Quest, he's going to be constantly applying weakening on any boss every time he uses a strong attack because his increased chance is to Quincy enemies and not just technique enemies. And in a way, that increased chance to only a certain type of enemies when he has killer could be a negative, right? You know, Ichigo, for example, when you take him into inheritance trials, likewise with Rukia, their increased chance to inflict status ailments is against any technic enemy. So in inheritance trials, they're potentially going to perform better than someone like Aaroniero. But Aaroniero, when he has killer, is easily going to be the best character in this attribute. I think many people will agree that he's easily an SS tier. I mean, his damage output, his strong attack kit is good enough. As of this point, there's literally nothing bad about him. Where you would rank him in SS tier really comes down to you. I would say he's easily top 3. You could argue 2nd place, 1st place, 3rd place. I wouldn't really disagree with you. For me right now, I'm going to say number 1 for his Guild Quest potential. And even outside of Guild Quest, I mean, his damage output's high enough, right? Just to brute force through any content. But I think Aaroniero as a character, if you do pull him, makes your account better. So I would say easily SS tier, in my opinion, number 1 as of right now. Overall, very solid character. Definitely the character we needed in the power attribute. As we've already stated basically every month, that the power attribute is still in a bad position. Despite us now getting access to another SS tier character in Aaroniero, we still definitely do need like a Yuha Yatsu level character in the power attribute, which in my opinion is what we are going to get within the 9th anniversary. Aaroniero is a great step to making this attribute better, but likewise, it still needs more characters like Aaroniero, characters that are easily top 2, top 3 best characters in the game. Speaking of Yuha, that then takes us into the Mind attribute. Now, within the Mind attribute, we did get 1 new resurrectable character and 1 new character. The resurrectable character in question is Rangiku, who did see a good upgrade in my opinion, getting more utility in the fact that she now has an increased chance to apply weakening against no affiliation enemies, which means she's better when she has killer, which is the only time you really ever want to use a character like Rangiku. That makes her better in my opinion. I don't think she's going to leave B tier. If anything though, you could probably say top of B. Maybe low A if you really want to. I'm gonna say top of B for right now. I overall think it's a good resurrection, but nothing super crazy. For our newest character of the month, we have the Fierce Battle Rukia, who's a great character in my opinion. She's a character type that we're going to see very often every single month, being a melee no-attack damage character, strictly designed for Guild Quest. Now, you can take her outside of Guild Quest. She does fortunately have guard break, and as a melee no-attack damage character, her having long reach increases her no-attack range, making it a bit more enjoyable as a character when played manually. She is still, at the end of the day, a no-attack damage character strictly designed for Guild Quest, but her damage output is very high, enough to be easily S tier. We do currently rank Party Time Aizen in S tier within the power attribute, and Rukia is basically a better Party Time Aizen essentially. Where would I rank it in S tier? It doesn't really matter, to be fair. She's exactly what you want it to be, a non-attack damage character for Guild Quest. I would say probably just right above Wonder Weiss, if not just a tad bit higher, given her a Spider Killer being a bit more valuable. But in a way, she's a very similar character to Wonder Weiss, right? She has Flyer +1, a high bruiser value, and then when you take it into Guild Quest, she has Flyer +2, more melee damage, and more killer effect damage. What I really do like about this Rukia, despite the fact that she is a melee non-attack damage character for the melee Espada Guild Quest, is the team party buff that she does have. It being a 20% normal attack damage increase to only Stripers potentially opens the doors for a bit more synergy in teams that you can create. If she had a team boost SA2, she would have perfectly paired with Parktim Aizen, and it's really unfortunate that neither one of them are a team booster, because they actually would have worked very well together. But usually when it comes to team boosters that we do see for no-attack damage characters, it's always restrictive to being a certain type of attribute, or a certain attribute and affiliation combined. And very rarely do you get to actually use a team where you're getting all those buffs. And since she only buffs Sorba characters, I mean, it's very likely in the future if we do get another no-attack damage character for the Melee Espada Guild Quest, that character might be Sorba. I mean, most characters in this game are Sorpers, so this team party buff is a lot more open on the characters that it can actually buff. And it does buff Aizen, but again, unfortunately, in Guild Quest, the way you want to play with your team, you need to have a team booster. But as of right now, she's currently the best melee no-attack damage character as a side for the Melee Espada Guild Quest, and that makes it easily an ST character in my opinion, especially because you can take her outside of Guild Quest because she was at least given Guard Break. Would you still want to use her outside of Guild Quest? Probably not, but I pulled her recently this month and I'm very happy to have her. She overall made my Guild Quest team a lot better. Other than that, not really else really to change. I am going to move down Ikaku. I think leading up to the 9th anniversary, we are going to start moving down some SST characters. Someone like Ichigo, for example, he is very similar to Yamamoto in the sense that Yamamoto and Ichigo's Aizen, Satani Aizen, they were the best characters in the game at one point, and they've always been SST since their release. Since they've been released, obviously damage output is starting to get a lot higher, but the thing that's been keeping these characters relevant is their killer effects and definitely the performance in Guild Quest content. Right now, Ichigo is still a great character for the ranged Striper and Aranka Guild Quest, which is why I'm keeping him in SST. But I think as we do go to maybe the 9th anniversary and new power creep starts to kick in, as we already have been seeing within the last few months, maybe I will start moving these characters down. But in Ikaku's case, I feel like maybe top of S tier is a bit better for him. I mean, there's always been a case whether he was better than Bargo. I think they're both interchangeable, and since Bargo's an S tier, I think Ikaku does make sense to be an S tier. And I did see a few comments last month requesting me to put Ikaku and also Yumachika next to each other, given their, partner status. Not in that way, though. Despite the Mind attribute only have access to basically like 3 SS tier characters, some could argue that Yumachika's SS team, the attribute in itself is still in a good position, right? I mean, it's not like they obviously are lacking quantity of SST characters, but I think the quality of SST characters is what definitely matters. And in this case, White and Yuha is basically all you need for any heart-only content, especially Yuha. Yuha is a character that recently came back this morning, and the big thing about him is that he does get 2 soul bombs after 80 kills, and that in of itself is still one of the most broken abilities in the entire game, to the point that right now, Mind does not need like a broken character anymore. Sure, more characters like Yumachika that are just really good, but not best character in the game good is good enough. But yeah, Mind is in such a good position right now. They definitely don't need any more broken characters, but more options is always nice. Yuha and White are definitely that good enough to carry the attribute, even if it's only just them two. Moving into the speed attribute, we did get one new character, that being a new Aaroniero. A character obviously I'm very excited to rank on this tier list. Very pleased to be adding a new Aaroniero onto this tier list, but unfortunately, not the greatest character, I will be honest. They kind of did him dirty. Truth be told, he's basically a link for the better and more powerful super links of farmers, that of course being Senjumaru and also Tensei Zangetsu, and Aaroniero is never going to be able to live up to their status, even when he does have Killer. We saw later, literally 2 years later, after Aaroniero did release, is that they released Noitora. And Noitora is a much better character with the way he wants to get through the Iron Skin ability in Inheritance Trials, given that he does have Frenzy +2, an 80% SP boost, an increased chance to inflict status augments, and also Debilitator, so the status augments themselves are lasting quite long. With Aaroniero, the unfortunate thing about him is that his base damage output is quite low, only being a 60% Berserker with Frenzy +1. He of course does have an increased chance to apply Lacerate, and when he does inflict a stat augment, you will then do 100% more damage to actually to enemies, but that's only when Lacerated is actually applied. Once the Lacerate wears off, well, you're back down to Frenzy +1. I really think this character should have been given Frenzy +2. It in a way does feel like he's underpowered even for a mid-month character, and Frenzy +2 in my opinion definitely would have helped this character a lot to be a solid S tier character in my opinion. Although the most unfortunate part about Aarionero's gameplay, which isn't really talked about too much, is the lacerate not lasting long enough because he was not given debilitator. So once the lacerate is applied, it's most likely going to wear off within like 1 to 2 seconds. So despite this character being designed around having a high damage output or higher damage output when they are lacerated, you don't really get too long to experience that high damage output because the lacerate is going to wear off very, very quickly. Ultimately, the biggest downfall about this character is just his damage output just being lower, very low for this character. And I feel like he should have been better, given that the speed attribute in of itself is already stacked as is. Again, as a Super Link farmer, you're competing with Tensor, you're competing with Senjumaru, and with that, it has to come at higher standards. Maybe Caleb knew as a mid-month they couldn't compete with them, but we saw they released Halibut a month prior, and she's a really good farmer that easily competes at least with Tensor and Getsu. So it really is unfortunate the way they went around designing this new Aaroniero. While I do love his gameplay, while I am biased towards him, and I think he is still a fun character, he is definitely still underpowered in this current meta. But where would I rank him entirely? He's at least an A tier. He's at least an A tier. He was given Havoc. He has good strong attacks. It's just the damage output is just low. It's just low. I would probably say like around here, probably A tier, middle of A tier, I think is best for him. I think when he has Killer in Inheritance Styles, he'll be fine. But other than that, nothing really to write home about, despite him being a plus 10 Super Link farmer. That's all we really have for the speed attribute. Again, speed in itself is still absolutely stacked. I am going to make one little minor change, that being this particular Toshiro. I'm going to move him up. I feel like he's just been a lot more valuable, a lot more good to have over Gin. Gin's a good character, but again, his biggest problem has been the jack of all trades, master of none, where he has a good damage output. He's not bad, he's got good survivability, but where are you going to use him? You rarely ever use him, right? Unless you are a Gin fan. But with, Toshiro, as we did see in the most recent Nightmare Quincy Gyokwas, which is scheduled to come back, he was able to beat him. And thanks to the fact that he does have a good support like Akon, I mean, Akon is just solidifying himself as one of the best supports in the entire game. Akon is going to be relevant for a very long time. Like, even if in the future, if certain characters fall off, newer Soripa characters will come out, and they get better because of Akon. Akon is always going to be a definitely MVP in the speed attribute, especially if you are a speed attribute Soripa. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I have much else to change. So that then takes us into the final tier list, the technique tier list. In this case, we received one new resurrectable character, that being Spirit Society Kaien, who is currently ranked in B tier. Overall, his strong attack kit is not the greatest, doesn't do much damage, doesn't really offer like that much enjoyable gameplay to say the least. And unfortunately, his new resurrection is strictly designed around inflicting status augments. He does more damage to paralyzed enemies, but he does not have an increased chance to do so. Resurrection, in my opinion, really didn't change him all too much. So for the most part, he's just going to stay in B tier in the exact same position. As for our newest and final character to talk about, we have Future Society Orihime, another ranged no-attack damage character in the technique attribute, and both of them are Orihime. What are the odds? We literally just got that less than, what, 4 or 5 months ago? Now, Orihime, in my opinion, is quite, not revolutionary, but she is definitely a step in the right direction for normal attack damage characters. Nowadays, no-attack damage characters are strictly designed for the Guild Quest content, and they've always been best in there, so that's why Caleb are now doubling down, making them strictly Guild Quest characters. Because let's be honest, most people just don't use no-attack damage characters because they haven't evolved enough. And that was my biggest gripe with the most recent 1000-year Blood War Toshiro, not feeling special enough as a end-of-month no-attack damage character. Orihime, though, I think is a step in the right direction. She feels better, and she feels like an end-of-month character. She's still no Aizen level. Aizen is still right now like the pinnacle of a no-attack damage character. More characters need to be like him. But in my opinion, the thing that makes this Orihime a lot more special as a no-attack damage character is one, her gameplay, right? She has a very good no-attack damage string. More so in the range itself. Being a ranged character with long reach is very rare for us to see. Her damage output is obviously great. It gets even higher in Guild Quest content. She is still, at the end of the day, a Guild Quest character. But she has some good utility effects with the dodge super damage, so when you do use her with Killer, half of the time you're not taking damage if you do get hit. She does have Sharpshooter, so you can use her outside of Guild Quest, and she has a good team boost, right? A boost with the booster skills, so you're increasing your attack, focus, and defense by 43%. What's the most unique about this character, though, is that alongside the boost SA2 that she does have, it also is a tracking vortex, a homing vortex, which is the first time we have seen that in a SA2 boost attack, and also first normal attack damage character we have seen with a tracking vortex. Again, would love to see it more often, would love to see tracking vortex with status augments on normal attack damage characters. It's probably one of the best strong attacks they can have, because it provides great crowd control and just basically lines up the enemies to be stationary right in front of you. There was the slight problem with this character upon releasing, before releasing actually, that the attack itself was classed as a melee attack, but fortunately thanks to community backlash, before the character did release, they actually did fix it and made it a range attack. So now if you do take it into the ranged swordper guild quest, a guild quest that has actually needed a character like Aaroniero, we haven't received a good ranged swordper killer as a main or a side in quite some time to carry that guild quest phase. So getting Aaroniero right now is a great damage buff for those that wanted to have an easier time tackling that guild quest, especially when the Nightmare GQ came around. But the fact that the SA2 itself can now boost your team, she can attack from afar, she's dodging the attacks half the time, and she could also provide crowd control, makes it a very good character. In my opinion, a very easy S tier character, but where exactly would I place her in S tier? Maybe just like below Gin, maybe above Gin. I think it's either already. I would say below. I mean, she's great. She's a great normal attack damage character. I think she's still held back by being a Guild Quest character because her highest damage output's only in Guild Quest. Outside of Guild Quest, she doesn't have Fly +2. In Guild Quest, she has Fly +2. If she had Fly +2 outside of Guild Quest, maybe you could argue to be a tad bit higher, but she also kind of inflicts stat elements too, so even though I think she's a step in the right direction for normal attack damage characters, I still think I'm only ever going to use it in Guild Quests. I would still, though, love to see a character like Aizen combined with this Aaroniero, if that makes sense, like a boost, maybe, and a barrier with a tracking vortex, increased chance to inflict stat elements, long reach as a ranged character, with Flight +2, maybe even throw an attack boost. I don't know. There's a lot you can do with that character, and Caleb aren't doing it. And Aaroniero is a fresher breath air, a step in the right direction, but still not enough. Enough for guild quests, but not enough to satisfy those that want to use normal attack damage characters. As for the other characters in the list though, I do want to briefly touch upon Yumachika. He's not in this list, but he's very similar to Safui Toshiro and also to Ichibe. Is that because we are seeing the upcoming guild quest separate the human characters, the Squad Zero characters, and also the Stern Raiders. Now because 1000 Year Blood War Ichigo is no longer the best character for the Melee Quincy guild quest. Remember, he's now gone into the Stern Raider guild quest. That overall means that Ichibe is a much better character, a much more valuable character to have now. Because as far as Melee Quincy killers do go for guild quest, he is now currently the best. Especially again when paired with this Soifon and also this Jushiro. In regards to Squad Zero and also human guild quests, but more specifically Squad Zero guild quests, it's always been awkward when using someone like Toshiro and also Yumachika, despite them being good for their respective guild quest phases. You know, sometimes 3, definitely at least 2 of the bosses are humans, where they don't have killer effect against them. Now, because they have separated, Squad Zero is going to have 5 Squad Zero bosses where Toshiro has killer against all 5 of them. So in a way, Toshiro's gotten better, or most of the guild quests where you want to use Toshiro, and likewise Yumachika, has now gotten easier because they're going to have killer against all 5 bosses. I know there's a lot of backlash and annoyance with the new guild quest schedule that we are getting upcoming this month, but honestly, I feel like it's done more good than harm for characters that are available to use in this game. I feel like characters have gotten better and more valuable to have. You could look at it as a way that Caliber kind of forcing you to summon for new characters, but it's a gacha game. That's like the point. Why would you not want to pull for new characters, right? I like to see it as the current existing characters are now getting better and more usable. Because Ichibe, for example, is a character that I would never use in Guild Quest because Ichigo, True Shikai, was just better. Or at least my True Shikai was better. Now, Ichibe is going to be my go-to character for the Melee Quincy guild quests. And now my Toshiro and also Yumachika are now going to clear faster in their respective guild quest phases. With that said though, I think that's enough for the tier list today. Overall, some very solid characters that we did get this month in the month of April. Aaroniero, unfortunately, being the most lackluster character here, strictly because he's mainly just there to be a link, right? At least Rukia is meta in her current guild quest. Noritora is setting up to be a really good farmer that has extra usability outside of farming capabilities. Okura is definitely a great step in the right direction for power characters and a much needed character for the ranged Quincy guild quest. And then Orihime is once more another great addition to the no-attack damage archetype characters and also really good in the ranged Swordbeard guild quests. Potentially even a character you could use in other guild quests just for the crowd control and also boost aspects. I'd say it's overall a good solid month of new characters. I essentially pulled for every character this month. Unfortunately didn't get any of the future society characters, but I'm kind of fine with that because I'm willing to wait and get them at a later date. I'm still a 1000 Year Blood War junkie, so I'm going to save for 1000 Year Blood War characters, and I'm hopefully maybe expecting that for the end of month of May. Maybe it's not really the right time to talk about it right now because it's not a prediction video, it's a tier list, but for those that did stick around to the end, I'm predicting, and my predictions are never right, I'm guessing more so, that end of month of May is either 1000 Year Blood War or a very high premium banner. So I'm definitely looking forward to the end of month of May and can't wait to add them to next month's tier list. So make sure you stick around, subscribe to the channel, and come back next month as we do rank the new characters, which I do expect to be quite hype and also very powerful. Only time will tell, though. Again, as always, though, if you have any disagreements with our current tier list, let me know in the comments below, and we can potentially reflect that next month. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys next time. Take care, and peace.